We are on the cusp of a really nerve-wracking US election and the upcoming London mayoral election as well. So coming together to talk and think about and work together to create positive change on our streets and in our cities and like for democracy in general feels really vital, which is why I'm really, really happy to be hosting an event like this today and to see so many of you here. My name is Amy. I've worked for Sustrans in London for the past 4 years. I work in the collaborative design team where we work together in engaging communities and designing changes to the public realm with the people who are going to be using those spaces. More recently, I was working on a project with Camden Council to help reduce air pollution in Camden and Kentish town centres, where we engaged businesses and residents, community groups and street users on what improvements they would want to see in their local area. Which was going to lead up to a weekend trial pedestrianisation of Camden High Street. And as I understand it, the council is still very keen to see those changes delivered, but as all of us have been dealing with a lot of other priorities in the last few months. So yeah, Camden, in that project, you know, Camden is such a diverse borough, and what really came out of that project for me was talking to countless people, is that the vision of a 20-minute city is going to mean really different things to different people. And engagement is so key to understanding what this looks like in different places.
My title is forget 20 or 15 minutes, we need 10-minute neighbourhoods. Neighbourhoods composing of houses or apartments, houses scored markedly better than those primarily constituted from apartments, and those people in high-rise or in neighbourhoods with a lot of high-rise developments generally felt that their neighbourhoods served them much less well during the lockdown period. Also, perhaps worryingly, newer neighbourhoods came off worse. In fact, there was a progressive deterioration decade by decade from 1919 onwards in terms of the experience, with the newest neighbourhoods performing least well in terms of supporting us during the period of lockdown. Well, one absolute critical factor was our access to parks and greenery. Proximity to a park within 5 minutes walk was the strongest predictor of satisfaction during the lockdown period, and over 10 minutes led to dissatisfaction. The presence of local facilities, shops and services was almost as strong a predictor of satisfaction, and again that dropped markedly over 10 minutes, hence my title at the start, forget 15 or 20 minutes, we need 5 or 10-minute neighbourhoods. People were looking for high quality space for walking and cycling and quieter streets, the availability of less traffic streets, and the reduced traffic during lockdown was very much recognised and prized. The last quote here, reflecting the London situation, that many people living in London in particular see that experience of living in London as very much one of living outdoors rather than indoors. Many people live in very small, cramped spaces, and so they rely on the facilities and amenities around their home and further afield to live their lives fully. And it turns out that we have 702 lengths of these local high streets, these mixed high streets, which amounts to 500 kilometres across London, 700 metres on average per length. So these local high streets are just 3.6% of London's road network, but they're where 1.5 million Londoners work. That's more people working on these local mixed high streets than working in the central activities zone. All Londoners have a stake. 2/3 of Londoners live within 500 metres or a 5-minute walk of one of these local high streets. That's 5 million people. So in other words, not just this, we're not just looking at that sort of, that line of retail that lines many of these streets, but also this, they have height as well. There are things going on above those retail units. And this, because there are things going on behind, that hinterland that I talked about was with rich set of activities going on.
And during the pandemic and this corona crisis, we're seeing some members of our community so much more severely affected by all of the issues around health and also economics. And so the Green Recovery Plan was really a way of trying to support our most vulnerable residents and try and bring everyone back together and think about what kind of vision we want for the future, and recognising the data Matthew was talking about how some members of Croydon, some of our residents live much further away from a green space than we would like them to, and how that is affecting our health and our well-being, around issues like air pollution.
We imagined, as you can see on the screen now, a green corridor starting in the heart of Croydon, and initially flowing north from the Wycliffe redevelopment to Thornton Heath District Centre, and part of our aim was, as I said, to tackle that inequality across the borough. Linked into this, we want our town centre and district centres across Croydon to be walking and cycling friendly, with slow moving traffic and roads that are easy to cross, with frequent crossing points and wide pavements. Linked into our three core principles, which were community, environment and transport, we created a plan that could be implemented with council, mayoral and central government support. And we break this plan down into short term, medium term and built for the longer term as well. A green recovery toolkit to involve communities and co-develop proposals. It included creating demonstration streets with council support to show what we could be done very quickly, connect different community initiatives to share learning and facilitate progress, and introduce a behavioural change programme to support active travel to school. In the medium term, we will support green economy businesses by offering business rate discounts and affordable startup space. We want to support community engagement with green recovery improvements through dedicated volunteer programs and ongoing action for mutual aid groups and partnerships with local schools. And in the longer term, to fund environmental charities to deliver a new Croydon nature service and new initiatives for community involvement, especially job creating projects for younger members of the population.
And so here we have a final vision. So if you have been to Croydon, you may be more familiar with the way it is today, the vision on the left with our mini motorway that we are so fortunate to have in the centre of our town. And on the right, well, I think this can be an aspiration for all of us.
Lots of things in our area. We do things like tree planting, getting new benches and bins. We do a monthly Dr. Bike session. We have a cycle-powered outdoor cinema every year. We do forest school, art, theatres. Whatever our committee wants to do, whatever our members want to do, we're sort of a platform where they can do it. But the really important thing about this is we don't just campaign for safer streets. It's a holistic approach. As an early years person, I think that building a city for children is how you build an inclusive city for everyone. I think that's a basic. If you start with children, then you can build a city for everyone. COVID-19, more people had their eyes open to what a city might be like when streets are quieter, when people are more social. And the thing about working through children and with children is that they live in a 15-minute neighbourhood or a 20-minute neighbourhood, because that's their lives usually. They might go somewhere on the weekend, visit families or a museum, but overall they go to the shops, the schools. But there is a problem at the moment, I think, that the enthusiasm for 20-minute neighbourhoods and the reduction of through traffic on our streets might actually be a risk, because we've moved very much to talking about rapid change and shocks to people's local neighbourhoods. And before, what was happening was very slow incremental change. And I think we need to value that more about community engagement, because it's very easy to implement change really quickly as a council, but then you lose the transparency and you lose the feeling that people have control over their own neighbourhoods. So I lament the loss of healthy streets and livable neighbourhoods and positive language. I hate that we're using this term low traffic neighbourhood, because I am traffic as a pedestrian, as a cyclist, as a scooter person, and we sort of remove that agency from people, their ownership of the streets. And on one side, it's a way of acknowledging that our streets are too car dominated, but it excludes us all from saying, actually, we're traffic too, and we demand our space. And there's lots of questions about the removal of traffic, and they're not being answered. You know, how will this person do their shopping, or how will that person access a clinic? But if you look at the places that are 15-minute neighbourhoods at the moment, like it is in Deptford, you wonder, how do these people do it? How do we do our shopping? How do we get to school? We walk, we cycle, and our environment needs to meet the requirements. The middle picture at the top there, where the two boys are trying to cross the road, is Britain's second most dangerous junction, and there's no safe crossing. You know, and these are things that we can't do as a community. So I think there's sometimes a confusion. The local authorities often get bound up in creating place, and they start you know, making these big plans about how things will look like in the future, when actually their role should be to just create the space, and communities will come together and create place, and they will decide how it will work in the end. And this is video. I don't know if the first one came up, it looks black on my screen, but you know, we closed this street. That's what the local authority has to do. It's a legal thing. And then the people just took over. You know, it's a school run now, children play there, it's just fun. And that's my school route. And every time when I'm walking down Prince Street and I get there, it's a sigh of relief. And, you know, a lot of people were indifferent to the closure at the start because they don't drive, so they don't really care. But now, if you tried to remove that, you'd have a lot of parents very irate. So, to summarise, focus on school routes, playgrounds and parks. You know, if you start there, if you start with favouring children, other things will happen. And Prince Street's a very good example of this. It was a school route, that's why we did it. But then the pub was able to use the street, and people were able to use the street, and it became something more. It became now, you know, it's managed to let that pub thrive despite the situation at the moment. You know, that's how to do it. If you focus on children and families, because they're in the 15-minute neighbourhood, they're not going anywhere. So if you make the changes central to children's lives, you know, and if you want to really understand a community, and I think it's another one of the things we didn't do as much as I would do now with Sustrans, join people on their school route, join people in the evening as they walk, and see what that journey is like. You know, if you walk around Deptford, there's no drop curbs, there's no, you know, it's very inaccessible. And engaging with parents and with children on school runs. We did a lot of work with schools, which actually allowed us to have a project that was more grounded in the community. There's been no opposition to these street closures in Deptford because people don't drive, and actually they're very much wanted, and they create something more. The creating of dual filters, where you don't just stop things from happening. It's not just a negative engagement with the street, but actually taking back that space and allowing the community to use it.